Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the Audio Wave Network studios here on the Lower East Side in the city, powered by the East Side Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation, a content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the East Side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We drop a new episode every week, so be sure to turn on those notifications. Flooding and infrastructure in the city of Detroit is once again taking center stage in today's conversation. More specifically, we are asking the question of who should bear the brunt of repairs and recovery from the recent flash flooding Detroit has been experiencing, and who should be paying for the prevention efforts to stop this from happening again. Joining us today is Russ Bellant. Russ is a Detroiter, a former engineer for the Detroit Water and Sewage Department. He is an author and activist. He's also an East Sider. Russ, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you, Orlando. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. Hey, a little applause.
Oh, listen to that. Now I know it's real.
It is real. It's real and authentic. You know, you have a voice that's made for radio.
I know, right?
Have you ever considered that as a second or third career?
No, I've had about 5 already.
All right.
I'm set now.
Right.
Career number 6, maybe in the bag. How's everybody doing?
But he can come back, though, right? Because he's got the great radio voice. And we have so much to talk about today. I'm super excited about this interview because as soon as the flooding happened, I thought, Russ Bellant, you were the person who a couple years ago explained to Ricky Ackerman and myself how this whole stormwater system worked, because I had no idea. Most of us don't, you know. You turn on the water, it goes down the drain, and now you know there's a pumping station. I mean, I learned words like catchment, basin, and other kinds of fancy words. And, you know, we learned about great infrastructure. But the architecture of the Detroit Water and Sewage Department is not something that we know. And I actually did a literature review trying to see if I could find an article that would explain this in great detail, and found that it's a mystery to most people.
That's right. And, you know, now that we have something called the Great Lakes Water Authority, another story, we used to have a map of the regional sewer system and the regional water system, separate systems that you could find on the website of Detroit, and also early on when the Great Lakes Water Authority was formed. But now that map doesn't exist. So I brought a map today because I downloaded that and stored it on my computer. You know, that because once you're in the water department and you really believe in that mission, and, you know, you just collect all this stuff because you say someday in life, maybe I'll need it. Right. So I'm a rat pack when it comes to water system stuff, especially Detroit's. So, yes, and I was a water plant operator in the Detroit system, and I worked in the water distribution and sewage collection system a bit as well. So, yeah, we have an incredible system, and I want to make sure everyone knows that Detroit still legally owns the system. Yeah. But they don't have the rights of ownership, which is something that's familiar to Detroiters. We own our school system, we own this, but, you know, outside forces take it over and undermine it and weaken it, injure it, and then hand it back and say it's your problem. Right. And so that's how the system is now.
Authentically Detroit. So before we get into this too deep, before we get too deeply into this, though, I want to talk about our weekend. I had a most exciting weekend.
Tell me about it.
Okay. So Friday.
First of all, y'all need to see Donna in this new haircut she got, y'all. It looks nice. I don't know if y'all seen it, but we gonna show it on a picture when we publicize this episode. Did you get your haircut this weekend?
You know what? I'm embarrassed. I cut it myself.
Wow.
Was driving home, and I was like, in my mind, I was thinking about how I wanted my hair to be cut. So I had made an appointment with the hairdresser, and it's one of these online appointment things. And they sent me something, and they said, we're we've received your request for an appointment. We will review it and get back to you. But in my mind, I knew what I wanted, so I just went home and did it. And I came downstairs and Kevin was like, you cut your hair. And I was like,
wow, Donna, that's amazing. I didn't even, so, the multifaceted Donna Gibbons Davison, y'all. Yeah. She could run an organization and she could do some hair. Who knew?
Yeah. Did you have a mirror behind you?
No. I was just pulling it out, just kind of estimating. Wow. So, I have a lot of courage.
You do.
That's right.
But but no, that's not the weekend thing. This is the story. This is like a real redemption story, right? So, last year, I was really struggling to walk.
Yeah.
And it was right before the pandemic. And then I found out that my knee was out of place and I needed physical therapy, but nobody could get physical therapy because the whole nation was shut down. And so I just sat around and whatever. And so eventually my knee got better and I started doing some things to try to get stronger and work out. Well, last Friday I had a relapse and I could barely walk.
Oh, no.
And so I was really, really, really stressed. Like, wow, I was just so happy that I was able to ride to Belle Isle and back, ride about 20 miles in one day. And now I'm, stuck. But then I got up on Sunday and I said, let's go riding, Kevin. So we went riding. And then after we went riding, that evening, I remembered I had promised to go to a community meeting. So then we rode over to this neighborhood meeting. And then while we were on our way there, somebody reminded me that I promised to campaign with a candidate for city council on bikes. And so we were riding for 3 hours. And I had no pain. And I woke up from a Monday feeling really great.
Oh, that's great.
It is really amazing to me. It was doing the opposite of what my body told me to do. My body told me rest. But I was reading, don't rest. You have to keep pushing forward. And it's just a reminder, that when you have a setback, you have to keep pushing forward.
Mind over matter.
Mind over matter. And you have to keep on believing in yourself. And I think as a community right now, we've had so many setbacks. And you got to push forward. So that became it was almost spiritual for me, and I just had to share it.
I love it. Hey, that's the best thing. It's spiritual on a Sunday.
Right, exactly, right?
So odd, right? My weekend was good. So I instantly became an uncle, cousin, dad. I had my little cousins. I grew up with their mom. She was like a sister to me, so I'm more like their uncle. They're here from North Carolina, and it's 2 of them. And oh my goodness, I am not ready yet for this brand of teenagers and children. It was fun, but also like, difficult trying to, keep them engaged and entertained because all they wanted to do, Donna, was stay glued to their screens. I'm used to communicating. I'm used to, having a conversation, kids wanting to like go out and do things. These kids didn't want to go outside. I had to drag them outside. I had to make them eat, like leave your screen so that you can actually have a meal. I'm like, oh my goodness, is this the generation that we are raising? How do we combat it? But we ended up having the opportunity to go to the pool, and they had a great time. And I was like, mission accomplished. And then I dropped them off at their grandmother's because I could no longer do
You can't do the screen thing.
I could no longer do it. So my weekend was busy chasing after and trying to motivate some young people to be young people again.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? But it was an experience. I learned a lot. Once they got talking, I listened. We went to breakfast and, they started talking and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So they're really smart, really interesting young folks, just different, a different kind of young folk that we're bringing up today.
I grew up in the, 60s, 70s.
60s,
70s.
Yeah.
No, but back in the day, everybody lived on the same block, right? Yeah. So, there's a bunch of kids. We go outside. There's a bunch of kids on my block, and we just played.
Yeah.
Got home and just played. You didn't have play dates. Your play date was just go down.
You was outside.
See what Gwenny and Teresa are doing. We're going to go play. And then we go to each other's houses, and eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But in our generation,
drink from the water hose.
Drink from the water hose, best water ever, right? Yes. Summer water hose water. It may be carcinogens in there, but it was delicious, right? And so that's what we did.
Yeah.
And now, it feels like everybody's far apart.
Yeah.
People live in these homes and everything's in the house and you got air conditioning, it's hot outside. So it's just a different world than the world I grew up in. And even I think the world that you grew up in, which is the world that my kids were in, was a world where, at least my oldest two, my youngest kind of...
We were outside.
My youngest is Gen Zer. They're a little different, right?
Yeah.
Philip, but you guys were outside, right? Yep. You had to go outside, go play outside.
Yep.
And so, but I think it's even more difficult for a lot of kids to play outside, depending on where you live, because you have neighborhoods with no sidewalks.
And then everybody's so far apart. But you want to know the other thing that I observed even at the pool is how young people meet other young people. I remember growing up as a child and I met another young person at a fun place. We were instant friends. We were, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, we're going to go to the diving board. And we were best friends for as long as we were there playing together. The way that they even meet other children now, and this could be a side effect from the pandemic and not really being able to be social.
You're saying when you were a teenager, you would see other...
So a preteen. So he's one of them is 12 and the other one is 9.
Okay.
So they're still kind of like very young. I was still very outgoing it really changed when I got to like middle school, like junior high, and how I met folks. I was still very friendly, but I became a little more self-conscious as I got older. But as a kid, even the 9-year-old, like as a 9-year-old kid,
I don't know.
It was fun.
Because when we take Kyla and Luna out and they see kids playing in the park, they just have new friends.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's my new friend. Yay.
Yeah.
We were at, where were we at? Alma Kitchen. And we saw Carla and Richard Todd Smith.
Oh, the Smiths. Shout out to Carla Smith for her new position at, where is she?
She's at the DIA.
The DIA.
Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the DIA.
Shout out to Carla Tinsley Smith.
So we saw them and they had their son there and we had Luna. And they saw each other, and King Richard and Luna, and they were instant best friends. They had so much fun together.
Bad, Sir Richard, yeah.
Okay, did I call him the wrong? Yeah, okay, Sir Richard, right. But they had so much fun. I'm just saying that I think kids naturally do that.
Yeah.
But I think you can tell kids who are not raised to be around other kids. Or sometimes you're told, don't play with those kids, you don't know them. It's adults. I don't put it on kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because I still see kids doing that. You know, I get to go to the park all the time with little ones, and when we do, we just see them fall into each other and just become best friends.
I love it.
But the last time we went
Take
to the
me
park,
with you, because I want to see that again.
Okay, well, listen, we have so many times we have to get together. But the last time we went to the park, we had Luna, and Luna saw these little girls. She says, I want to play with the girls. And she ran to those little girls, and their father was sitting there. And they would not play with her. They would only play with each other. And I think that's because sometimes parents are so cautious that they don't want their kids to trust strangers.
Yeah.
So I would not say it's all kids. I still think some kids are kids, but I think that we just live at a time where, life is just different now.
It is different. Yeah, it was striking to see. I hadn't, babysat children in such a long time. So it was a new
Now they still love their screens.
Oh, absolutely.
They love their screens.
Absolutely.
Even Luna has her screen. Luna's 3, and she can get on her iPad and push and call mommy.
Yep, I had to do a screen curfew. Right. It's like, okay, we're done. We're done for today. Russ, how was your weekend?
A busy weekend. Yes. Still doing research, getting out and talking with people, and going to events, and spending a little time at home with my sweetheart.
Oh, good. I love that. With this sweetheart. JG, do we have like sound effects? Like All right.
Close enough.
Time for fresh off the press news that we are thinking about. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Donna, fresh off the press.
This is coming from you from Bridge, Detroit, and ex-Detroit police chief's political hopes and pending lawsuits. And this is about Chief Craig, who has decided that being Hollywood Craig for the Detroit Police Department was not nearly enough attention.
Yes.
And he came to fame and national fame because he was so hard on Black Lives Matter. And so that has become his mantra. He's anti-Black lives, and he is loved by, Fox News and whatever. And so he's, standing by it and doubling down on his decisions to use tear gas on peaceful protesters, his get tough stance, and people act like he has solved crime.
And
as if
Detroit
somehow Detroit was safer on his watch. And I say, prove it. It was interesting to me. They asked Mayor Duggan how he felt about Craig. He said, well, I liked him until he became a Republican. And it's like, wait a minute.
He always was.
At what point do you have to say I'm a Republican for people to understand that you are representing the party of hate?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He did everything but call himself a Republican. But, he's taken off his, mask, whatever mask I could see, most people could see through. So now all of the activists who said, hey, he's really a good guy, get to see him for who he is. So I suppose there's that to look forward to. But there's still a number of lawsuits. The lawsuits are pending. And he is named in the lawsuit. So whether he runs for governor or not, he is named in the lawsuits, and he is getting all the attention he can stand.
We have on good authority that he's planning on making a big announcement sometime this week or next week.
Well, it's pretty anticlimactic. We know what that announcement is going to be. I'm going to run for governor. He's attacked Governor Whitmer because she closed down schools. Every Republican talking point. He's an embarrassment. But
he is something to pay attention to. I think it would be a mistake to ignore the strategy on part of the GOP if they choose to put him out front and not Betsy DeVos.
They keep on doing this. They keep on putting the black man out who's attracted to white people, and hey, he might be cool with black people, but the reality is the more Craig opens his mouth, the less people are going to remain sentimental. People are still in denial. A lot of people felt very betrayed. And said, I feel betrayed. And I'm like, why? I always knew he was like this. He's been going on these TV shows and he's been a popular guest. But, when it comes down to it, I don't think that he's going to get the kind of support that they want because black people do not vote race over beliefs for the most part.
If he clinches the gubernatorial nomination, does he need votes in Detroit to win?
If Detroiters come out and vote. If Detroiters sit it out, and Detroiters decide we're not going to vote, I suppose it doesn't matter. I remember when Jim Blanchard lost to Governor Engler, it's not because he had such wide outstate support, it is because Detroiters stayed home. So I think it is up to us to mobilize Detroit. Now the question is, if Duggan becomes mayor again, will Duggan, who is mayor, mobilize voters against or for Craig? Because he'll have to come out against him. And to a certain extent, coming out against him or staying neutral in this race, it'll just be interesting. The politics of this are very complex. But I think that, hopefully Governor Whitmer will be running on some strong principles. And
she has $10 million in the bank. So she got some money already.
She's got some money and she's got some values. I don't always agree with everything she does, but I agree with much more of what she's done. Much more than James Craig or Rick Snyder
or Betsy DeVos.
I mean, come on, Betsy DeVos. I can't even stand to look at her, but I think that she would be a mistake. I think you can't buy your way into the hearts and minds of people. So anyway, this is just another reminder that he hasn't gone away. And even though it's very upsetting to me he comes out like this, at least right now we know who he is.
And I want to remind Detroiters that we will be dealing with trying to sort of untangle and understand some of the policies that he, along with a Trump Justice Department, put in place, especially around surveillance, things like facial recognition technology, things like shot spotter and other surveilling technology that oftentimes misidentify Black folks at a disproportionate rate.
Yes.
Here in the city of Detroit, policies like the Green Light program that we are grappling with. And I think Alea Harvey Quinn put it so eloquently when she was a guest on our show. Detroiters do want to be safe, but we carry this tension of wanting to be safe in a system that isn't punitive or surveilling to us, right? How can we be safe and how can we have both, right? And it's something to see and it's something to watch. I think it would be a mistake on part of the Democratic Party to dismiss him, and I don't see any strong messaging coming out from the Democratic side. And the Democrats make this mistake over and over and over again. He is a person that is not to be ignored.
I don't know. I think that they're not going to dismiss him. I think the reality is that you can't dismiss the other candidate. I think people know who he is. People understand the threat that he represents. I think that Republicans make the mistake over and over and over again because they keep on running John James, and now they have James Craig, and so we've changed.
They love
one
James.
name. James, maybe it's the James.
It's the James name.
That goes back to when I think it was in the 1980s when they recruited Bill Lucas to run for governor. I think it was against Blanchard, and they thought they were thinking that they were going to pull Detroit votes and still have the Republican base and join that together. Didn't
There's
work.
Continued cynicism on part of white Republicans, believing that black people vote emotionally and will not use our heads to make decisions.
Do you think it's a play in trying to get Detroit voters? Because I'm not necessarily sold on the GOP wanting votes out of Detroit, rather than them trying to combat a narrative that the GOP is home of the racist party. GOP is the racist party. You know what I mean?
I think that there's both. I think that there's clearly a desire to get a slice of Detroiters, because they don't need all of Detroit. They don't need to win Detroit.
Right.
What they want to do is they want to get a critical mass of Detroiters. That's the reason why John James outperformed Donald Trump in Michigan, is because some people were swayed by his blackness, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what they want. You don't need everybody. You just need a few. And so I think it is an attempt to carve off some people. The same reason why you get endorsements from Kanye, or you get endorsements from you have your, what is it, the Platinum Plan or whatever it is that
who's that? Ice Cube
had. You're not thinking that people like me are going to change my mind, but you're thinking that there's a group of people who are really, really cynical about government and who will be swayed by blackness. Here's the issue with Craig, and here's why I think Craig is not that smart, is a lot of the same people who don't trust government really don't trust police chiefs. And he is a police chief, and he's a black man, and he's running for governor. And so I think it may actually be worse than John James, because he has a track record, and his track record doesn't play well with some of the woke folks who otherwise might be just persuaded to say, well, the Democrats don't do anything either, because we know what Craig has done. He's got such a track record, and while he's running for governor, mind you, this case will be winding its way through the federal courts. So I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for him. I think there's so much about him that has not been exposed. And when you're running, there's already been a few leaks about his personal life, whether it's fair game or not. And I think there will be more. So I don't think that this is going to be great for him. I don't think the Democratic Party is going to take him unseriously. I think the problem is that we need to have candidates who run with vision, for sure. And I think that we need to have candidates who are running with 21st century solutions to 21st century problems. Certainly somebody who's got a message around these floods and what's going on with the water. And so I hope that the governor steps up her game a little bit and is a little bit more responsive to what we're seeing here. But still in all, I don't think that Craig is the ideal candidate, and I'm not threatened by him as some people are. Maybe that's just because I dislike him so much. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I just don't see how people can see him. I don't see how he's going to survive this unscathed. But,
we'll see. We'll see.
The name Betsy DeVos, people are thinking, well, she can buy the election. But remember, her husband, Richard DeVos, ran in 2006.
Yeah.
He couldn't buy the election.
Yeah. Dick DeVos tried and failed.
she's got liabilities he doesn't have to the general public. So
definitely,
she'll be beatable too, but it's got to still be based on the right campaign approach from the Democratic Party.
Vision. Yeah. Okay, fresh off the press, abandoned 100-year-old Detroit home about to get new tenants. Who is moving in? So this is a really lighthearted story by Kyla Wright, reporting for the Detroit Free Press, about the nonprofit Congress of Communities, who has in the process of remodeling an abandoned home in Southwest Detroit for their youth center and their new headquarters. So first off, I want to give a shout out to all of the amazing young people at Congress of Communities, who is headed up by our friend and fellow activist here in the city of Detroit, Maria Salinas. Shout out to Maria. Can we get some applause right there? Shout out to Maria and the young folks. Listen, guys, they have a tentative move-in plan for this fall, and they are still raising money. So you can go to Congress of Communities website. We'll have it in the description of the podcast so that you can contribute and give whatever it is that you want to give. But I want to say that Congress of Communities, along with a few other organizations in the city of Detroit, they embody youth-driven right? They embody that word. They embody what it means to be youth driven. And so young people came to Maria and the board, I think in 2018 or 19, saying, hey, we want a space in the community and we want to redo a house. And because they are so youth driven, the youth council has a real voice. They're not tokenized. The higher up, the board and Maria's leadership saw to it to make that happen. So here we are 2 years later with a grand opening slated for the fall for these young people to have their own space in a house in Southwest where they live, but also for Congress of Communities to have their executive offices there, right? So it would be an office space, it would be a community space, and it's not just for young people, it's for everyone. But you would know that this space was driven by the vision of young people in our Detroit community, specifically the Southwest Detroit community. So shout out to Congress of Communities, and Maria Salinas doing amazing work over there.
Yeah. Well, I love Maria. So I'm so glad that, we get off that other subject. I think Maria is such a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And also a wonderful leader. What really makes this special, in addition to the fact that it's a 100-year-old house and she wants to preserve the culture and heritage of this house, and that's something that is near and dear to us, is this concept of preserving our history.
That's
we
it.
don't have to tear down
culture.
Everything in our culture. And the multicultural vision that she has for everything. But what makes this really exciting for me is that you have young leaders who did not design a youth space. They designed a community space.
Yeah.
When you take young people seriously, the question is, can they design something for me? Or are they just designing it for people like them? To trust young people to bring the energy and the vision to an entire community really speaks to the level of leadership development that they're doing over there in Congress of Communities.
Just amazing. I mean, from picking the contractors and interviewing them and picking the colors and the decor, I mean, all of it. And Maria Salinas is overseeing this in the wake of her losing her husband. Maria Salinas suffered the loss of her husband this year, and she has not missed a beat. I don't know how she's doing it, but we're sending you, Maria, if you're listening, so much love and support from the East Side.
Yeah, you want to talk about a beautiful love story.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. She and her husband had such a beautiful love story, and it inspired everybody, right?
Yeah.
So I would listen to her love story and say, I want that one day, and because, they were together as teenagers, they just had this complete closeness, and they were a pair. And so, but Maria's a wonderful, strong person with a strong support and strong vision and a lot of love. She gives off so much love. When you give up that much love, you get some in return. And so I'm hoping she's okay. It's an exciting project. This is not the first time she's been in the news lately. Mm-hmm. The other time she was in the news recently was the Clement Kern Gardens, which is the project that attracted, I think, $33 million in federal funding to redo this entire housing community. And what I learned from Maria is what she was able to do is negotiate on behalf of the residents who are there continued access for not just low-income people, the way the city describes it, but the actual tenants of that place, and to create permanent housing inside of this new development for them. And so she provides support. She uplifted the leaders there. Outstanding leader, and she deserves all of the shine she's getting. Yeah,
she does. I also want to shout out some of her amazing staff over there who believe in her vision and help make it happen. Go to congressofcommunities.com/donate. congressofcommunities.com/donate. For every person who gives a donation of any amount toward the rehabilitation of this 100-year-old home, your name will be memorialized somewhere in the house. And so of any amount, that's right. You can give $5, $10, $25, $25,000, whatever. congressofcommunities.com/donate. And shout out to everybody over there doing an amazing job. That wraps up our fresh off the press segment. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Russ Bellant, thank you.
Sure.
So much for your willingness to come on and speak with us and our listening audience. You have been an outspoken advocate for Detroit residents during these flood events and the recovery from them. We're anxious to hear your thoughts on a few points, specifically about how the water infrastructure in the city of Detroit is paid for, thoughts around recovery. But, first, can you talk about your career at DWSD as an employee and a trainer?
Sure. I hired in to the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department in 1988. Coleman Young was mayor. And I hired in, I had some kind of mechanical background, so they put me in a mechanical title. And I worked there. And this is when the water department had a facility on Rivard right by the an old fire station there in the Eastern Market area, and they had a training facility there, and I met a gentleman named Raphael Robinson who was the training director there, and I said, what kind of things should I be looking for in terms of moving up into the water department and doing more than what I'm doing now? And he said, apply for an apprenticeship as a water plant operator. He said, because that's coming up. And I said, okay. I applied, and I went through a 2-year apprenticeship with the water department, and a registered apprenticeship. That means registered with the Department of Labor. That's the sign of whether an apprenticeship is for real or it's just
sure.
window dressing term for some employers that want to pay you cheap. And so I went through that program and rotated among all the water plants. And I just really was amazed by the system that Detroit had. I just wished everybody could know the story of what really Detroit had built and what it possessed and how it happened. And I became an operator and worked primarily in the Northeast Water Treatment Plant on 8 Mile. And in 93, I heard stories about how Senate Bill 85 was introduced in Lansing to take the water department from the city of Detroit. And at the time, I never knew anything about what the Michigan Constitution said about all this. Mm-hmm. I just thought, how can they do that? And so I swapped shifts. We worked swing shifts. Worked about 7 or 8 days on days, then on afternoons and on midnights. And then you had a long weekend, then you did it all over again. Not a healthy work schedule, but we swapped shifts, and I went up to Lansing to watch everything that was going on, and it was all coming out of Oakland County at that time, and I said,
good old L. Brooks.
Yeah. It was the water commissioner, George Kuhn. It was before L. Brooks was doing this. George Kuhn, the drain commissioner for Oakland County, had been pushing this for years. The first takeover of the Detroit water system was pushed in 1970. That's how far back it went. And so I studied and watched this, and I said, I got to learn more about the system and, get into this fight, because it was just outrageous. The stuff they were saying, it just showed absolute ignorance and, of Detroit and system. And so when they held the next series of hearings, I went up and started testifying. And I was doing it on my own. I wasn't doing it in behalf of the city. But, I got a call from an aide to the mayor and said, we really like what you did. And because Mayor Young took the strategy then of boycotting the hearings and not sort of like, you can't get in a fight with a pig without getting slop on you,
Yeah.
And, you just avoid those things. And so that was the approach. He also knew in the background he had the protection of a federal judge who was overseeing the system. And the federal judge wasn't going to play with the allowing them to do it because he was going to rule it unconstitutional if they tried it. But I didn't know that at the time.
So can you talk about, you said that you were really amazed at what Detroit had built in terms of the water infrastructure that's here. What is it?
Well, in 1919, we started building something called Waterworks Park on the Detroit River across from Belle Isle. And at the time, it was the world's largest water treatment plant. I can't remember the number, but they drove like thousands of steel beam piles down to the rock bed under Detroit and built this huge facility on it. And Waterworks Park, spread out in the city. Of course, the city, and until the 1920s, it wasn't nearly as large as it became. So in 1935, they decided to build a second plant, the Spring Wells plant, on Warren, West Warren Avenue, right around Wyoming area, and that came online in 1935, and that was bigger than Waterworks Park.
Wow.
And in all of these, they put in something called rapid sand filters, which means it was fine, a particular grade of sand. It was a fine grade of sand, and it was built on as I recall, a charcoal bed. It was built on a bed that between the sand and the bed was about 4 feet thick, and it was such a fine filtration that it could filter out bacteria. They put a flocculant into the water. It's sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of like what it does is it collects solids in the water, and they mix this in when it first comes into the plant before it goes to the filter and gets chemicals. The flocculant stays in the filter bed, and it helps trap bacteria and everything. It's just an amazing filtration system. And then after, there's a certain point on a gauge where you just backwash it and wash all that, get clean water, and you wash all that filter out and clean it every so many periods of operation. And I was just amazed that, and they had all acres of these filter beds on all the plants, and that was an advanced technology in its time. And then they did a grid system of water mains so that any place where there was a failure, it could be isolated and that people could still be served by rerouting the water. And it just absolutely amazing stuff. And then the plant on 8 Mile came in 1956. It had been what's called a booster station. You'd feed water into it from one source, and then they would have pumps there, and they'd boost it and shoot it out further, And they built all that. But in about 1955, Livonia was having trouble, and others in western Wayne County, but it was really highlighted in Livonia, where they didn't have enough of a water system to where the state would allow them to open schools they built. They weren't allowed to occupy residences of housing developments because their water system was so inadequate. Artesian wells out there had dried up, okay? And the mayor, this is a famous quote, well, unfortunately it's not famous, it should be. The mayor of Livonia said to Detroit, if you put your pipes out to us and send water to us, we will pay any price you name.
Wow.
And just as famously, or what should have been famously, a guy named Lenhart was the head of the water department, and he said, we've already serving 40 suburbs, and that's quite enough, because if we build out all these suburbs, they're going to take our population away, they'll take our employment away, and then they'll try to take our water department from us.
Wow.
1955, he said that.
Wow.
And boom.
That's so funny. Because, growing up, my family settled here after fleeing Jim Crow and from Comita, Mississippi, in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood near the water. Mm-hmm. And I would hear my grandma always talk about they want the water. You ever hear old black folks say that, Donna? They want the water.
Oh, they're coming for our water. They're coming for two things I knew growing up, right? One was Detroit has good water. My mother used to always tell me that Detroit has good water. And I was born in Ann Arbor, raised in Detroit. So it's the only water I ever drank. Why is it good? It's just water.
It's
Detroit
water,
has
right.
water. I mean,
Right.
hose water is good. But, it's just water. I had no concept of good water until I went other places, right? And we would go to Idlewild and drink well water, so you could sort of taste the difference between well water and Detroit water.
Not sort of.
But my mother was like, Detroit has good water. Detroit's good water was a point of pride for Detroiters.
Right.
And we all knew they're coming for our water. We knew that growing up. You'd hear adults talking about this, at least in my household, because they talk politics around us all of the time. And we always knew they were coming for our water. Now, when you're a little kid and you see all the white people move out into the suburbs, you don't believe they really want to come for the water. They're not coming back. But then I became aware as an adult that they wanted to actually take control of the water system, like those hearings that you were going to. And so this has been, but we knew that we had good water. There was a point of pride. Detroit's water purity was really good.
That's right.
And that it was better than most other places. So when you would hear the complaints, the feedback was always, well, we have good water. We're doing a good job. What I didn't understand then, as I do now, is that our water purification process was good. Our stormwater management was not as good.
That's right. And the sewage system is a whole other side of it. Again, Detroit built a sewage plant in 1940. It came online. It didn't do a complete sophisticated training, disinfection and process. It didn't do advanced treatment. It did basic treatment and dumped it in the river. And it was not adequate. But back then, nobody knew that was a problem. They thought the Great Lakes can handle anything you put into it. Well, you had Great Lakes Steel, you had Uniroyal.
But the Canadians were bothered by this all along, right? Because there were some lawsuits, weren't there?
I think so, but they had their own role up in Sarnia with the petrochemical industries up there. St. Clair River has a bed of petroleum byproduct on the bed of the river, so everybody was messing it up, and of course the EPA came in in 1990s and sued the water department to stop the problem, but even before that, in the 1960s, again the state of Michigan was telling the suburbs that what they were doing, because they had canals and inadequate, they weren't doing any sewage treatment to speak of. Detroit was doing more than they were, and they pressed Detroit and they pressed these suburbs to come together and told them to join. They said, okay, you're getting your water from Detroit. You start doing the Detroit Sewerage Services, and this whole big grid, like on this map that I showed you, was built for major sewage collection systems. At the same time, they were expanding the capacity of the water treatment plant, the sewage treatment plant. However, this was based on 1960 realities of where population was and what the land conditions were, and in addition to whatever systems they had in place then to handle rainwater and with canals and so forth. Well, the world's changed then, and that leads us to our flooding problem today, because in the interim, since this was done in the 1960s, we saw massive reuse of land of Macomb County. Yeah. Whereas before you had undeveloped land and farmland, where the rainwater could be absorbed by the land and maybe flow into a canal.
Now you got services.
Yes, we've got square miles of impervious surfaces, shopping centers, industrial plants. Towns that were small towns and burgs are now a full population with housing. Well, all the runoff from these surfaces, not all of it goes into sewers, but a lot of it does. And when these issues were being discussed, it would be said that, well, and the reason it was given for making Detroiters pay for almost all the stormwater costs of the region was Detroit has sewer and raw sewage all combined, the sanitary flow and the rain flow all combines in one. So Detroit is the one that's causing the big buildup in the sewage system, and these other communities don't have it. Well, that wasn't true. Older communities built the same way Detroit built. They combined the sanitary and the sewer. Some of the newer ones didn't. But I can tell you one of the ways that the sewage gets transferred from Oakland and Macomb County down into Detroit is that they have what's called sewage lift stations. All sewage flows by gravity. But you have these pumps go deep in the ground that raise it at the bottom of a pipe, and they elevate it, and then it flows back again, and it goes sort of like a zigzag pattern all the way from northern Oakland and Macomb County down into Detroit. Well, at each of these stations our charts, rotating charts, and once a week I would go around and change these charts. And you could see that during rainfall periods, there was more flow in the sewage from all these different points. So when they say, well, it's Detroit, I know better. And others know better than that, but everyone wants to blame Detroit for it.
So what's the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor Authority?
They, when Dave Bing was mayor, he sold a big transmission line, sewage interceptor line, I should call it that. That's the proper term. And then they built this authority around it. One of the sewerage lines connects Macomb and Oakland, and all of Oakland County drains into this line, and then much of northern, especially northwestern Macomb County drains into it. And they are rebuilding that line. And I don't know this yet, but I'm going to try and find out whether they're not just rebuilding it, but whether they're making it larger, to handle more capacity. And the reason that's important is because that line extends down to 8 Mile to another sewage lift station that takes and transfers by pump, transfers that flow from their line into our Van Dyke interceptor that runs under Van Dyke Avenue. And as it goes south, it turns east and goes right into the Lower East Side. Now, that line alone is collecting sewage from a population of about 660,000 people, which is equivalent to the entire population of Detroit. There's another Macomb line coming from St. Clair Shores, East Point, Roseville, that flows down through the Grosse Points and meets this Van Dyke line right at the same point in the Lower East Side where all the flooding is occurring. So here's my argument. You've got flow flowing by gravity, which means it has some velocity, and it has an incredible amount of volume and force, and it fills and pressurizes these tunnels during rainstorms because of the volume, and there's not enough capacity in that sewer to meet the sewer needs of the Lower East Side, and so their stuff goes into the basements.
So when you talk about the Lower East Side, when you talk about the Lower East Side, what are you talking about? Because I know that you have the Connor Creek pumping station,
yes,
and you have the Fruit pumping station, and then you also have Blue Hill. Is it all three of those, or is it one of those?
Well, these lines meet right at the Connor Creek station. Okay. So when we're talking about Jefferson Chalmers area, East English Village, and nearby Cornerstone Village, all these places where people had 4 to 5 feet of water in their homes. I argue it's not because they live close to the river. It's because the sewage system is already dominated and controlled by the flow from the suburbs, and it can't serve its local needs down in those points. And I would argue that if you, and I don't recommend doing this, but if you put a gate and blocked off every sewer coming into Detroit, every sewer interceptor line coming into Detroit, and they do all across 8 Mile, and on the west side too, you blocked them all off, we'd never have a flood in Detroit again.
So can I ask you a question about this massive infrastructure that the region is also taking advantage of? Who's paying for it?
Well, Detroit, until Dave Bing sold that one line, which is not something anybody who respects Detroit would do, then Detroit built the entire system and charged all the customers who got benefits from that system. And so the Tri-County region paid for the development of the Tri-County costs. Now, but Detroit took on all the legal liability of doing this and took on all the responsibility, and with no thanks from all the beneficiaries. And so now here's my bottom line concern about this. I was at an event the other day where a city council person who I've never respected when it comes to integrity and commitment to the people spoke at an event, and he told people that Detroiters are going to face a huge cost because of the need for fixing the flood problems in Detroit. And this person resisted allowing me to address that question after he made these statements. But I'm arguing that what has to happen, since those two lines I mentioned coming down from Macomb County, collectively they serve 954,000. In other words, 1.5 times the population of Detroit is being served by just those two lines going into the Lower East Side. They need to build a series of high-capacity, high-volume retention basins by those sewer lines, store the stuff until the storms go away, and
the
slowly
will catch it. Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
And they call them retention basins.
At their expense, right?
At their expense, of the Oakland Macomb Interceptor Authority.
And who knew? First of all,
I didn't even know.
First of all, I feel like there's so much you don't know.
Yes.
Until you mentioned, you told me a couple of years ago about the Oakland Macomb Interceptor, so that's been like something that's been on my mind. And strangely, I can't get anybody else to talk about it. It's not something, the design of our stormwater system is not well known, or sewage system is not well known to many people, right?
That's right.
But number two, there's an authority. So I Googled it, and I was like, is there really an authority? And there it is. Then I Googled the Van Dyke Interceptor, and I saw that was being managed by the Oakland Macomb. And so, one of the challenges in 2021 is that you have the government that you elect, right? And then you have all these darned authorities. And the authorities are exercising the power of government without the accountability of democracy.
That's
Would
right.
you agree with that?
100%.
Can you say that one more time? Because I think...
Would you repeat that? Yes.
Please.
I mean, I'm just saying that the authorities are exercising the power of government without the accountability of democracy. And it is a privatization.
That's
and
right.
what happens is you elect somebody, they appoint people. You don't even know who sits on these authorities. Every time I look up, there's another authority controlling some other aspect of daily life. Whether it is I think we talked about this the other day, Orlando, the public health authority or something that's supposed to receive, or I don't know if it was you, somebody was showing me something in a meeting that said that that the Detroit Health Department is supposed to be producing these reports for some authority I read about in the city charter, but because we don't know who sits on them, and elected officials get opportunities to appoint people. I'm not saying this is true, but there's a possibility of patronage. There's a possibility of corruption where maybe I appoint somebody who has interest in this outcome to this authority.
Oh, I can tell you stories about that.
Right. So I think,
my God, it's horrible.
One of the most important things is bringing to light how your government functions, how it operates. I was looking at something today. It's completely off topic, but I want to bring it up. Our friend Chase Cantrell, friend of the show, he has to come back on. Chase, we're calling you out. Posted on Facebook today a couple of things that were really disturbing. A couple of items that were going before City Council to be paid for out of this recovery money, the ARPA money. It was like $16 million going to a logistics company called ACOM Great Lakes or something like that. And so I go to the Michigan Business Entity Search to figure out who this is. And it is an entity that is managed by the corporate corporation entity registration. So it's like this blind ownership. You don't know who's over it, but $16.5 million is going to this entity to help them manage their use of these funds, right? Now, you don't have staff working for the city. You've got to pay $16.5 million. Now, in the ARPA funding, I think they are committed $30 million to home repair funds. But they're committing $16.5 million to some entity that's doing something we don't even know about, or at least that would.
And we don't even know who they are, right?
We don't know who they are. There's no public disclosure. And so we're looking at this, and these are the first contracts going out. What was the bid process? What was the selection process? I'm sure there had to be one, but who knew about it? There's another $1.5 million going to the Procurement Limited or something LLC, and it's like, who are these people? Who is making decisions, and where is the money going? Because that's where it feels like either people are acting in bad faith, or they're not accountable, even if they're acting in good faith, to the people who pay their bills. Because as far as I know, as a resident of the city of Detroit and a taxpayer of the city of Detroit, I'm paying their bills, right?
That's right.
They work for my government. And so the government should work for me. But when we talk about the stormwater system, we talk about what we can't afford to do. We talk about all of these things, and yet we don't even understand how much money is made. How the money is being spent. We're hearing they spent $30 million upgrading these pumping stations. And then, let's see, in one pumping station, I think Sue McCormick said, even if all of the pumps worked, it probably would have flooded anyway. So why do we have a pumping station if they don't really matter? That's my question. But B, she said, well, we do have power backup, generator backup, but that only happens if there's a breakdown in the external power source, right? And this was an internal issue where the water got into the wiring somehow internally in the Cotton Creek pumping station.
Yeah.
Right? And so we don't have backup for that. And so I'm thinking, you have water going into this pumping station, and you don't have a fail-safe mechanism if the water messes up the electricity because you didn't know water was going to be there. I'm trying to understand the logic of this.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 weeks later, I guess, the Blue Hill station had a power outage. And so my question is...
And the freeway pumps, too.
And the freeway pumps are a mess. So my question is, where is the accountability?
And with the Great Lakes Water Authority, there isn't. I think Sue McCormick showed before Great Lakes Water Authority showed a low level of integrity in practice and competence, and yet the Great Lakes Water Authority now, with a board member from Oakland, a board member from Macomb, from Western Wayne County, one from the governor, and two from Detroit. They retained her, and I hear a lot of stuff that disturbs me about the way they run this system now. But back to the flood stories, you can have a generator system that has battery capability and a system that when there's either power loss, the batteries automatically fire up a diesel generator. We had such a diesel generator at Waterworks Park in the 1980s. Okay, so if there was a power outage, and there once was one there, you had a diesel generator that could keep a pump going.
You're telling me that Jeff Bezos can go to space for 11 minutes, and we can't come up with sustainable infrastructure?
But again, I don't think these folks really, if you have a heart for your service and your mission, you do the necessary work, and you get it done. I'll tell you, Detroit used to be the engineering department at the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department had a world reputation as the best civil engineering firm in the world. Okay, people came from all over the planet to study what Detroit built. And an engineer reminded me of this in a recent phone conversation. He said, if you look at the products that were sold to water departments, like valves and equipment and so forth, they would advertise that this was approved by the city of Detroit. That was the top standard you could get in the industry. That's the kind of level that went into building the plants and the system, okay? But the people who are running it now, and I don't think there's any worse example than the Great Lakes Water Authority, because it was always a political issue for them. And, it burns me to this day that Mike Duggan, as soon as he's elected, goes to Brooks Patterson and goes to Mark Hackle in Macomb County and asks them to support Rick Snyder's plan to take the water department from Detroit. He's a newly elected mayor, and he persuaded them to do it because they were afraid if they take it, they'll get increased debt. And here's what he said to them. if you take this over, you will not have any increased costs. That means somebody else had to pay.
Well,
Guess who?
Let me ask you a question. Is that documented?
Oh, yeah. It was reported in the media in 2014.
Okay. So can you do me a favor when we leave here? Can you send me some documentation of this?
I will do my best.
I will appreciate if you do, because that's an important thing for us to understand how it got negotiated. I think a lot of us believed that this was negotiated by the emergency manager and by Judge Fikens. And so what I'm hearing from you is that the actual creation of the Great Lakes Water Authority was negotiated by the newly elected mayor of Detroit.
It was proposed in the bankruptcy process by the Snyder people and his emergency manager, and Duggan was mayor, and the three of them, who all went to law school together, the EM, Snyder and Duggan, Duggan stood behind him and backed Snyder's plan and helped sell it to the suburbs. Without Mike Duggan, there would be no Great Lakes Water Authority.
So you know what? Honestly, Russ, I could talk to you forever,
and
we're going to have to have you back on because this is an absolutely wonderful conversation. I feel like I'm learning a lot. People can debate this, that, or the other, but I think it's helpful for people to really understand some things about what's going on in our community. So I do want to thank you for coming on today. We do. Unfortunately, because we got a late start, and I know you're a busy man, highly in demand right now, because you bring this information. I think it's important that we thank you. Now, I understand I think you just took a little hit at University of Michigan Law School, so go blue.
No, they can't be. They can't be accountable for all the deviants.
I'm just
I know.
You.
I know.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But anyway, thank you for this information. I think we're going to have you back, and I do want to invite anybody who wants to come and really challenge any of this information, because I think debate is, part of what we're supposed to be having, but it's fascinating. I think it really helps us understand that there are some systemic things. I just want to point out a couple more things before we let you go. And one of them is that there was a manpower shortage at the Conner Creek station. And Sue McCormick said that they did not expect there to be rain. Now, I don't know if she watches weather.com, but I think everybody who watches the weather station knew that we were going to have serious rain. And then my other understanding is the power failure locked people out of the gate. So I think that there have to be some system redesigns.
Yes.
And we really need to push our government to design systems that are fail-safe. Climate change is upon us. It's not going away. And therefore, we need to have systems that were better than they were in 1955 or in 1985 or in 2005. So in part 2, we're going to invite you back sometime in the near future so that we can talk about what that may look like, what your vision is. And so I want to thank you once again.
Yeah, I completely nerded out. Nerded out in this conversation. This was so fascinating. Thank you so much.
I'll tell you how the security system worked at the Conner Creek station, why it was a problem on our next episode.
On the next episode, that's the cliffhanger. Listen, if you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Authentically Detroit, or email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right, few shout outs. ECN. Shout out to ECN, who's been helping people file their DWSD claim. Now the FEMA claims, because those are two separate claims that folks have to submit. They're here every single day. Staff is available every day to help you file a claim with DWSD and or FEMA. Call 313-571-2800 or just walk into the office anytime between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and staff will greet you and help you file your claim. And you can get a flood safety kit here as well. Shout out to Brilliant Detroit. They're having a grand opening in their in the Chandler Park neighborhood tomorrow, and I happen to be the MC for that. That's tomorrow, that's Wednesday, July 21st at 4 p.m. If you're not doing anything, you should join us for this amazing grand opening right across the street from the Hamilton Outdoor Rainscape that ECN put in just a few years ago. That's exciting. It's finally opening.
Yeah, it's really exciting because a few years ago when Cindy first, I met her and she was telling me about her concept, I said, you've got to do one in Chandler Park. And she always reminds me of that, and now it's opening.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the residents and all of the people on our staff.
Patricia Reed and Brenda Butler over there.
Who made that happen.
Yeah.
It was a work of love. And so we're really
Kelvin
excited.
And Joyce
we're rocking
Wells.
that corner. Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to y'all. Hey, I want to shout out my colleague Olivia Lewis of Bridge Detroit for some really amazing reporting and uncovering she did about the Detroit Burwood Wall in partnership with NBC News. We ran it yesterday. NBC News ran it yesterday. The story is traveling.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing
that
story.
That is an award-winning story. That is an absolutely award-winning story. It's the most informative. It's great.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Bridge Detroit.
Thank you.
Shout out to Bridge Detroit for doing that kind of reporting and the deep dives.
Yes, thank you. And Detroit will soon have a new planning director in the person of Antoine Bryant, pending city council approval for the appointment by the mayor. Antoine will actually be joining us next week on Authentically Detroit. So we're going to talk with Detroit's new planning and development director. There we go. I can speak English.
Well, it's really exciting because some of the people I trust and respect and know him are speaking up
very
him
highly,
saying very highly of him. So sometimes you bring in outsiders and people are like, I don't know, but he sounds like he's going to be great. I actually looked him up because I kept hearing all of these great things. I was like, who is this dude? But he's got a great track record working with people-driven planning.
Yeah, and I ran into him last night. He was a really nice guy.
There's actually something from the planning department that's related to this sewerage line where they're trying to give Macomb County a piece of a sewage line below 7 Mile to control it in perpetuity. And there's some kind of gate there or something like that where they can do whatever they want with it. They can expand it. And again, that goes to whether they're trying to let Macomb County dump more stuff into our sewer.
Is that the Van Dyke line?
It's the Van Dyke line. So
right.
I'll try and get you that document on that so you can ask them about it.
Okay, part two.
I know. We're going to ask them about it because we ask all the questions. And I want to send a happy heavenly birthday to the young Ayanna Stanley Jones, who was gunned down by the police department back in 2010. Today is her birthday. Today is her birthday, and we will continue to say Ayanna Stanley Jones's name.
Yes.
Yep. You have any shout outs, Donna?
Oh, you know me. But I do want to shout out Russ.
Yeah, thanks,
Russ. I asked him today. I thought about it this weekend, and I asked him today, and he came today. And so we really appreciate it when people accommodate us, especially coming to our studio here at Eastside Community Network in the Stoudemire Wellness Hub.
Hey. Shout out to JG, our producer. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to catch the wave.
Thank you both. I appreciate being here.
Thank you.